welcome to all of you. I hope you had a great day and that you are also excited about the two new books that we're going to launch this evening. Um, Thank you for joining us. We have about an hour that we're going to spend on the two books. The way it's going to work, more or less, is I'm going to introduce our two authors. I'm going to ask them about the books, how it came about, and so on. And then we will have one or two specific issues we will address, and then also, obviously, we would like to get participation from you. You have now the opportunity to tap the brains and the expertise of Kaizer and Alicia this evening, so you can comment, can ask questions, and so on, and use the chat if you don't mind, or alternatively, you can use the Q&A function. Right. Thank you very much to all of you again. So, good evening, Alicia and Kaizer.
Good evening, William.
Good
Alicia,
evening. Good
yeah.
evening.
I know Kaizer has been in bed the whole day with flu. I hope you feel better
Okay.
very soon, man.
Thank
Huh?
you, William.
So we have two great books. I just want to show it again. No, my camera is not picking this up, but Zia's put it on the scrolling beforehand. One is Becoming a Successful Manager. That's by Kaizer, and then by Alicia Patches. Coaching stories of overcoming impossibility. Now, let me introduce the two authors to you. But maybe before I do that, just a bit of context. Look, I don't need to tell you, we're functioning in businesses and in our own lives in a very complex period. Um, if it's not geopolitical issues, wars, then it's AI. You don't need to put on if you put on the television, you hear about corruption and so on. The fact is that this period of complexity is not going to go away. And it poses challenges for people in the workplace, for managers, obviously, and it causes anxiety and all kinds of trouble, mental health issues, which then is a challenge for coaches, life coaches, and people like Alicia. So that's what we're going to cover tonight quickly, and then let me move right away into introducing our two authors, and I'm going to start with Alicia. Let's get the ladies. We stick to the ladies first, sort of convention. Um, she's an executive, team, somatic, relationship, and depth coach. She's a professional facilitator and retreat leader with more than 2 decades of experience supporting individuals, leaders, and teams throughout complexity, change, and personal growth. Um, she is drawing on present-based somatic mind-body wisdom, trauma-informed practices, systems, and relationship coaching, and advanced Enneagram insight. This is her first book. She also is, amongst others, a Wits business coach on the Wits business coaching panel. She does coaching for major companies and organizations. Qualification-wise, uh, she did a BA social work. I believe people with a social work degree who functioned in that area, they are formidable people. And she's got a MA, a master's in theology as well. Amongst others, then also, she's a grade A certified Enneagram teacher. When we come to Dr. Kaizer Nyatsumba, look, he's a formidable person in his own right. He has worked in corporate environment initially in the whole area of media. He's been a newspaper editor, and he worked for companies like at companies. He had executive positions in companies like Coca-Cola, Sasol, amongst others, and then also being chief executive for CIFSA, the Steel and Engineering Industries Federation of South Africa during a period of when there were many challenges in the steel and engineering industry with the impact of imports from China, amongst others, and so on. He's a turnaround strategy expert. He's a chartered director and business rescue practitioner. Now, his qualifications, just quickly, he has a PhD in business management from the University of Johannesburg, and then an MBA from the University of Hull in the UK, and a BA in English from Georgetown University. Look, he's a prolific author. He's written many, many books, amongst others, his own autobiography called Corporate Newsman, Nelson Mandela, the South African leader who was imprisoned for 27 years for fighting against apartheid. And then he also is a poet, amongst others, and he had published many collections of poems and also short stories. So that is in a brief summary of both two authors in terms of what they've achieved so far. And let's move right in and dive into, Alicia. I'm going to ask you quickly, what inspired you to write the book?
Thank you, Wilhelm. Happy to meet you, Kaizer, and good evening, everybody on the call. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. So, in terms of patches, picture this. 5 children, the eldest a moody 14-year-old girl, the youngest 3 years old, walking behind each other into the library hall on Holt Road in Elsies River every second Thursday afternoon. This outing with my dad is the highlight of the week. When we get home, I rush to the small bedroom my 3 brothers share, the stoop that had been converted into a bedroom for them, and curl up on one of the bunk beds with my book, disappearing into my own never, never land. That is where my love for reading began, and I have never really stopped. Although these days, I must confess, it is often more geriatric listening than reading, thanks to Audible. This library ritual would continue for the next 3 years until I was 13, and we moved to a 3-bedroom house in Pieterse, a Cape Flats township, with an indoor toilet. Yay, pure happiness. No more scary nights to the pit latrine outside in the yard. Pure bliss. Before I get to patches, I have to tell you about my beloved diaries. As a lanky teenager, I often felt awkward, alone, and misunderstood. I would spill my guts out to God in my diaries, asked many questions, shared my everyday experiences, my pain, my frustrations, and sometimes when I read over old entries, I was surprised by how much I changed in my life. Self-reflection and writing became a daily practice, a way of listening to myself and to God's voice, to be honest. So why patches? For a long time, I knew there was a book buried inside of me. As a student counselor at UCT in the 1990s, I listened to many heart-wrenching stories from students, their daily struggles as first-generation university goers, their pain, their confusion, all that stayed with me. From 2005 onwards, as I trained as a coach and a conflict resolution facilitator, I was amazed by how much I was learning about myself, about people, about healing, growth, and change. In my 30s and 40s, I was busy building my career and raising our sons. I first certified as a coach in 2005 and continued enrolling in various coaching modalities because I remained intrigued by the human experience and the possibility for positive change. So over 20 years of coaching, I noticed that most clients arrive on autopilot, totally sleepwalking, in survival mode, knocking into brick walls. All of them are hardworking, but still go around in circles on their habitual hamster wheels. Yet after about 12 sessions, something shifted. They became calmer, happier, more self-regulated, and more awake to their gifts, their purpose, and their life's contributions. I became deeply curious about this transformation. I started making notes in my iPhone diary, no longer the book diary, tracking the changes I was seeing. So I began to realize that life does have a method. And when we learn to notice these patterns and how we respond to life, we can become more skillful at living. I wanted to share that method with others. At my company, Nurturing Growth Trading, the associate coaches, facilitators, and I were always involved in meaningful projects, even during COVID. This was rewarding work which kept us super busy. Then in 2025, work slowed down dramatically when the greatest of them all, the mega leader, announced policy changes in international funding, in DE and I work, and HIV/AIDS grants. It was a huge shock at first, but eventually I decided to make lemonade and use the break in my usual busy schedule to write patches. And as I state in patches, I wrote it to make sense of my own patchwork, my lived experiences, my traumas, identities, and healing that have shaped me as a daughter, a mother, a woman of color, an activist, a mentor, a coach, and a leader. Thanks again for being here today, and I hope that Patches will become your companion as you traverse life's many challenges and joys for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. We'll come back to the book and more specifically about the content, but I'm going to give Kaizer another opportunity to tell us why this book and how did it come about and what motivated you, Kaizer, to write the book. I think you're muted, sir.
Good evening,
There we
Valadam,
are.
and everybody who is just logged in, and Alicia and the care team. Lovely to meet you all. Lovely to have friends as well here with us. What is it that motivated me to write the book? I was offering training on management at Duke Corporate Education, and over a 2-day period. At the end of the 2-day period, it was mostly ladies. The ladies were just overwhelmed. Some would express the view that they wish that their managers were themselves part of that project because they are going away sufficiently uh, uh, capacitated, but they go back to the same old workplace. So I felt it was important to make sure that the book is available. I write a book and it's available to many more people. That is really what inspired me to write the book.
Okay, now can I ask you, tell us from your perspective now, your vast experience at a very senior level and managing many managers as well. What is the most important skill or skills for a manager for today's world of work?
The most important thing is for managers to understand that they're not imbued with authority. They are they happen to be the first in their respective teams, and that they have to lead by example. Nothing could be more important than that. So the managers who lead by example, who are empathetic towards others, are very, very important. Especially, I was listening yesterday to Radio 2000, and the lady who is the program is Domizotwa Miso. She asked people to talk about their experiences at work, the levels of toxicity. I was amazed by the number of calls that came in, people describing workplaces that were not healthy. And so I felt I needed to make a difference in that regard.
Okay. I'm going to now for the audience sake, I normally send an agenda to our authors, and with a couple of points we will discuss, and then quite soon I pivot into the actual. I see Alicia looks at me now as if I'm, but then I pivot and I change the questions. Um, Guys, a couple of years ago, I read a report from the World Bank, and in the report, it was about why are development funding and service delivery linked to it failing in Africa, and there was also in other developing nations as well. And they came to one of the conclusions were that there's a total lack of managerial skills here in Africa. So I would like you to respond to that and then link to that. Do you think that our business schools and our actual training that we provide to people in terms of management development is up to is future fit, is fit for purpose?
Okay, so with regards to that World Bank study, the biggest thing why our countries are in the state that they're in is because of poor leadership and poor management capability. People are appointed into positions not because they happen to be the best for that role, but because they're part of a particular party or a particular faction in a party. So the absence of leadership is a big, big challenge that leads to many African countries being where they are. There's a preoccupation with popularity and not a willingness to do the things that need to be done. Leadership is about doing the difficult things that need to be done, being able to take tough decisions and take people along with you, those who are willing to come along and those who are not, to let them go. So that is what is happening on the continent. You spoke about business schools. The business schools are good because they teach students about the various disciplines of business: finance, marketing, HR, operations management, the various disciplines of business. But they don't teach students how to become best students. So how to become best managers. So students go through business schools, they acquire the qualification, they go back to the workplace, and they continue to operate in a manner that does not show the ability to offer management leadership to those who are in the teams.
Yeah.
So
No,
that
well,
is the weakness.
I think you're 100% correct there. I'd like to hear what the what our audience think, and maybe they can also add a comment or two on that score. Alicia, share with us one of these stories that you've covered in the book. I just want to share with the audience, these stories and cases that she discussed in the book is heart rendering from in many cases, but they all lead to hope. That is the sum total. And there are so many learning points. I don't even want to touch on it. You have to read the book. Okay, Alicia, maybe a story from your side.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the comment about the hope, because, that is the point. I think a lot of us, we identify with our struggles, our difficulties, and it's full stop. But I'm hoping the book can show how it's not a full stop, it's a comma, that with certain support, etc., you can overcome. So I want to focus on chapter 5, the a recovering people pleaser. So
Mm.
I'm Alicia, a recovering people pleaser. It's still an ongoing journey, and I want to explain how it shows up in childhood. Um, in my case, I was one of 5 kids, and I was right in the middle, two above, two below. Um, and it felt like everybody else had, clear places in the family structure, and I would kind of get lost in the whole family system. And so my coping strategy was to not offend anyone. I would shrink myself. I would be agreeable, undemanding, and I definitely didn't want the spotlight. So when I was chosen as the head girl in matric, I remember going to the headmaster's office and tell him, no, don't do this to me, because I was going to be in the spotlight, and in my mind I was going to be offending someone. And then, of course, my father passed away when I was 21, and I was struck by the grief my mom carried and my siblings carried, and I suppressed my own grief. And you'll read in chapter 5 how somebody referred me to this compassionate psychologist who helped me, to validate my pain. And he's also the person who then put me on this path of healing and self-awareness. I didn't even know what a psychologist was at the time, and I remember the first couple of sessions. I went probably for 6 sessions, and I just cried. No words would come out, and he just held the space for me. And then in adulthood, the pattern continued. I would be overly agreeable with my husband. He would make certain promises, say certain things, and I would just accept, he said it, so it's true. And then when I had kids, I was overly protective of them, not allowing them to fight their own battles, hence, influencing their level of resilience. And I notice these days, my dog's name is Autumn, and there are lots of people on the call who know Autumn. And the people pleasing even goes beyond people. I will be in the kitchen making tea, and Autumn will look at me with doggy eyes. So of course, he's a dog. She has to look at me with doggy eyes. And her bowl of food and water would be full, and I would still find it hard to ignore her. And, so the pattern is just so pervasive. And I notice it for my clients when we speak about their management style and I bring up the topic of consequence management. It's like that's a curse word, like what if my team don't love me or don't like me? So it's this deep need for approval, to not offend anyone. And then I'm also exploring how the mother and father wound um, plays a role in people pleasing as a survival strategy. So with a mother wound, the mother is emotionally absent, unstable, and unpredictable. And then the survival strategy is perfectionism, over accommodation, and people pleasing. Whereas with a father wound, again, a lot of fathers are emotionally absent, and some of them are even abusive. And then the child learns to devalue herself in an excessive need for approval. So, what does this all mean? Um, it's really important for us to make the link between our survival strategies and how we bring them into adulthood and how we continue to use them to navigate completely different circumstances from childhood. Hence, those strategies fall short. Yeah, it's really important to see that, to notice that, and then to change the strategy, right? I mean, I no longer have to be so people pleasing. I am a grown up with resources, with education, with my own company, my own comforts, my own family, etc. And what I'm working on as a recovering people pleaser is when I notice the pattern is to replace it with self-kindness and compassion.
Okay, thank you. Um, Kaiser, I've just before we started here now, I received a notice from an American publisher about a book they are bringing out, and it was about motivating people. And how do you motivate people? And I thought you've got a whole chapter in the book on how do you motivate a team and how do you motivate your subordinates or basically your team, your colleagues. Would you like to share a word or two about that? Because I mean, there's continuous pressure in terms of productivity and getting your people engaged and so on. What's your thoughts on that?
It's very, very important to ensure that everybody in the team is motivated. And people are not going to be motivated if you, the leader, are all over the place. You need to show leadership. You need to be able to to share a vision with the team and to move them in a particular direction. And you need to reward good behavior. So if anybody in the team does well, we need in front of everybody to indicate how well they've done and to compliment them. That ensures a common shared uh, um, commitment to the team. The moment you allow a situation to develop where members of a team push in different directions, that works against the possibility of building a team and motivating it. So motivation is about ensuring that people feel that they are respected. They feel that their work is recognized, and they feel that the leader is available to them and has a vision, is taking them in a particular direction. So it's important for a leader, therefore, who wants to motivate a team to ensure that he or she leads by example. Because you can't expect people to do something that you yourself don't do. That will not lead to success. So the leader of a team that is demotivated must lead by example, and he or she must be able to call those, sit down with individually with those members of the team who are not performing well, to give them feedback and to encourage them to do well. And if that continues indefinitely if there continues indefinitely to be no performance, no change, the organization might have to look at parting ways with that. Because if you are looking to motivate a team and you allow a rotten apple to exist there, it would work against anything that you're doing. So you want to make sure that you lead a team in the same direction, that you're available to them, that accessible to them, and you are there to give feedback on an ongoing basis. So communication is absolutely vital in leading in motivating a team and leading a motivated team. And if you have benefits that you can offer for the attainment of certain goals in the process of uh, uh, getting to where you want to be, it's important to ensure that you reward people accordingly for the work that they've done.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, you've made it when you started the intro, you also made the point, and now again, how important it is to lead by example,
Yeah,
to be the role model, to
yeah,
practice the behavior that you expect from the people in
absolutely.
your team,
Mhm.
and nothing more and nothing less.
Yeah,
Um, I saw here Jerry Langenhofer made a point. He said, well put, Kaiser. I believe self-awareness and self-regulation are the key skills for leaders to have. Interesting, Jerry. There are two chapters, chapter 2 and 3,
yeah,
specifically. Kaiser deals with that point.
yeah. But self-leadership, you've got in the first instance to be excellent at leading yourself before you can dream to offer good leadership to others. You've got to be so disciplined that you lead by example at everything that you do, and then you are likely to have people following you, supporting you.
Yeah, guys. Just incidentally, for our listeners, um, the book is available. Both books are available from us, the publishers, Knowledge Resources, um, and also Amazon at the moment. It should be on the shelves of exclusive books from the 17th onwards. Um, if you look at the retail, if you want to look at the retail on our website, they're both in format and printed, and the same with Amazon. So you have those options. I just want to see quickly Well, if I look at number of people are saying just to the two authors, they can't wait to read the book, then it's going to be a bestsellers, both of them. But they must just keep their commitments. We'll go back to them and ask for proof of payment for the books later on in the month. Okay,
Yeah, for
Alicia,
me, I just want to make
yes,
the point, Velalem, that this is not a South African management book. It's a global management book written in South Africa, in Africa by an African. The
ah,
various scholars and experts that are cited in the book are from all over the world, in the
yes,
US, the UK, Britain. So it is not, if somebody narrowly says that it's a book about South African management, no, it is not. It is about management at its best around the world.
yeah, yeah. I just want to quickly, while you're on that topic, I mean, I just want to share with the audience um, some of the chapters. Transitioning from being an individual contributor to being a manager, which is so important. Then the whole notion of EQ, emotional intelligence, and social intelligence. You mentioned already communication, how valuable that is. Um, the enduring traits of great leaders, leading an effective team, delegation and coaching, which is critical. Then managing up, accountability, surviving corporate politics, and then the most important skills for a manager that you've highlighted already. Um, Alicia, how can readers benefit from reading your book and specifically these stories? How can that generate hope and create new possibilities, overcoming obstacles, tough situations, and so on?
So you see, Wilhelm, the reality is that life is the same for all of us. As human beings, the journey, I always say to my sons when they get a little bit envious about their peers who, are leaving for abroad because they got scholarships and stuff, then I explain to them that in terms of the phases, it's the same for all of us, but different seasons and phases visit us at different times in our lives. Part of that experience is preparation. Coaching, I want to piggyback on something that Kaiser said about, the purpose of his book is self-leadership. Coaching is absolutely about self-leadership, right? But when you don't have the guidance of a coach, you are going to try and make it by all costs. You're going to fake it. You're going to push forward, maybe at work or in your relationships, with a limited skill set that you bring with you into adulthood. So if you're 31, you have a particular, skill set, life experience. When you're 41, you have a little bit more. 51, and some people are clever enough to go for therapy. Others, no, I have got Jesus, I've got the church, I've got my friends, I've got champagne. I don't need any further input. The reason why I wrote the book is that over 20 plus years of coaching, and having worked with students at UCT before, it's more or less the same journey for all of us. The intensity might differ, the exact circumstances might differ. Some people admittedly, got a worse end than others. However, the hope is in taking ownership and accountability. And how do we do that? By being self-aware. So we cannot change the trajectory of our lives if we don't see our patterns clearly, right? And so coaching helps with that process. So it's not just self-awareness for the sake of self-awareness, it's self-awareness for the sake of having a deeper understanding of your own patterns. And once you see your patterns more clearly, you can bring curiosity and you can say, oh, wow, I don't like this outcome. However, you know, coaching is also expensive. coaching in South Africa was born out of elitism. When I did my first coaching course in 2005, I was the only person of color, for instance. I would sit in a room with, psychologists and privileged people, and I would joke and say outside everybody drives a silver, either BM or Merc, And so in the beginning, coaching was really expensive in South Africa. When I started studying coaching, I saw the possibility for liberation for the majority of South Africans. And so I started paying really close attention to what transforms. So I'm trying to bring that across in patches. So A, I want patches is affordable. B, through patches, I'm hoping that the reach will be wider. C, I don't just tell stories. The meaning making follow the stories. So this happened, what does it mean? And how, if I were to be in the same situation, how can I improve? I also have practices, reflection points, etc. So Patches is my gift back to my, past clients, current clients, future clients, people who believed in me, brilliant, excellent teachers I've had. So even though, I'm also from the Cape Flats, but where I've landed, it's such a privilege that I cannot ignore, where I come from. And I use my privilege to be of service to others.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very inspiring. I just want to see quickly. I saw, yeah. Sorry, Kaizer. Heather asked this question. Guys, you're welcome now to post questions or comments. A difficulty I have is responsibility without authority to reward staff. There's often a disconnect in corporate. Yeah, I think she's very spot on there. They're not, they don't have the, they're not empowered enough. Kaizer, would you like to comment on that?
That is a big challenge to be given a responsibility to carry out, but not the authority that goes with the position. You're being set up for a failure. It's important for you to insist on having the authority that goes with the role. You can't be president of the country and be unable to take decisions because you are just expected to refer at all times to the governing party. So you need leadership, starting with management, is about being able to take decisions, tough decisions, that are always uh, available, equally available to everybody. So a leader, a manager should not show favoritism. So one should be known for being a strong leader who leads by example and is available to everybody equally, not some more than others. But in order for the person in a active leadership position to be able to do well in that role, that person must have the authority that goes with that role. Even if accountability might be somewhere else, that person will be accountable to somebody else. But for him or her to be able to carry out the duty that is assigned to him or her, he or she must have the authority that goes with the responsibility.
Right. So true. I want to share these two comments with you. I have read Alicia's book. This is also from Heather. I think many people will resonate with the stories or cases and learn. Plus, she writes beautifully. Now, Heather, I want to make this point that in both cases, the chat GTP or any other AI cannot generate this. I mean, this comes from art. It comes from the, if you look at the cases, the experience that Kaizer shares in his book and the stories from cases from Alicia, you cannot get that from ChatGTP or any other AI. So don't even try and go there. Then I saw here from Professor Pandamari, who says Dr. Kaizer's hallmark in both his writings and statements, coming from someone who has known him since we both were teenage aspirant writers as university freshmen
Yeah.
43 years ago,
Yes.
has been this intellectual honesty. Now, Pinda always talks about, he tells the story when we have sort of webinars or launches of his books, then he would always share that story that how both of you sort of were aspirant writers in the early days, and how you also mentored him in many respects, Kaiser. Right. I just want to see here quickly. Yeah, whether
He's very kind. He's been a great writer from the beginning.
okay, yeah. While we're talking about Pinda, question to you, Alicia. As someone who, like you, comes from a disadvantaged community, Soweto in brackets, one of the things that troubles me these days is despair in the youth. How do we tackle? At least we grew up in the hope and vision of a democratic country. These days, I see less and less hope amongst youth. Now, I listened to somebody commenting earlier this week about a political analyst about the lack of registration for this upcoming elections from the youth, for instance. And his point is, he said they've, to an extent, given up hope, lost interest. All right, would you like to comment on that? I think, Kaiser, you can also comment on that, Michael.
Yes.
Alicia?
Quiet first.
Okay. So thank you for the question. As I have two young men in my house as my sons, I have a really soft spot for the youth. The first thing I want to say is that they've got every right to be disillusioned. Yeah, because even us as older folk, our hearts were trampled upon. Yeah, the promises that were made when we were activists during the anti-apartheid struggle were, most of it were empty promises. And so I am a firm believer in affirming people's experiences. So point one would be just affirm their experiences, their feelings, their reality. And then secondly, make sure that they're part of a community where they feel seen, held, accepted, and they are allowed to voice their opinions. And thirdly, if we're really serious about empowering the youth, I see here in my own house, because my son's friends come over, I have some of my nephews on the call. Jerry Langenhoven is one of my outstanding nephews. He's only 31, but he is such a role model to so many people, both young and old. And, you know, they also know it's not all doom and gloom. I think we live in a country where the older folk have a hard time moving aside and inviting diversity, different voices. If we can encourage the older folk to step aside, give the youth a chance, listen to them, take them seriously, then the country will benefit tremendously.
Okay. Kaiser, I think she's talking to me and you.
Yeah.
More you, Valayalam, than Kaiser.
It's
Kaiser, I'm
only
so
because
kind to
he
you.
cut his hair.
I've just met you today.
I agree with what Alicia said, but people have a choice in a democracy to be meaningfully involved in the democratic process or to abstain therefrom. It's part of the choice available to them. So in a environment where people have lost confidence in the political leadership of the country, where it doesn't matter to them who is in office, they are going to be uh, they're going to be disengaged in the way that they are now. So it's got to do with the degree of confidence in those who are running the country. And so when they see that those who are running the country are more or less doing it for themselves and not for the general populace, they give up, but they shouldn't be giving up. I would encourage everybody to go out and vote for somebody else if they're disappointed with the current party that is in office. But they tend to disengage. But that is also a choice available to them in a democratic process.
That's quite true. Now, Professor Mahdi asks, the question is addressed to you. Looks like we live in a world of rising populism all over the world. How do we navigate that as leaders who believe in integrity and delivery instead of theater? Well, Alicia can also answer that, contribute to that, but over to you, Kaiser.
Yeah, my friend, you're raising very important issues. That's one of the reasons why people have lost confidence in the political leadership, because you have people who are in office or who want to be in office who propound views that are going to make them popular and not to take decisions that are in the best interest of the country. Being a leader is very difficult. It's not easy. You have to take decisions. Some people will not like those decisions, but if you are convinced that that decision is at that moment the very best one for the country, you've got to take it. So, but if you're going to be concerned with applause, public applause, you're not going to take decisions. So you end up with the kind of situation that we have here, where we have a leader that is not able to take decisions, and that is very, very frustrating. So it leads to the populism that we talk about in different jurisdictions in different countries, and that's why the number of young people and people generally who take place in the political life continues to decline.
Oh, okay. Would you like to add, Alicia?
Yeah, I would like to add, and thank you for the question. Um, Rising populism versus integrity and authenticity in leadership. What I want to say about that is that we live at a particular time in history. If you look at the young people today and versus some of the golden oldies, our experiences growing up, with playing in the streets with our siblings and kicking ball and all of that versus you hardly 2 years old and the parent shoves iPad in your hand so that the parent can get on with the business at hand. So I believe that in order to move forward and to evolve from your current position, you have to be really conscious about reality as it is. So that is a starting point. So we live in times where there's a lot of social media influence, for instance, and the social media influence, from my perspective, is that it leads to a culture of popularity and to an identity of the number of followers that I have, right? So does it if it means I must shave the one side of my head or I must, hold my cup this way, if that's going to give me followers, then that's what I'm going to do. So there's very little authenticity in any of that. And then what goes together with that is, of course, is being ego based. And when I speak about the ego, I mean the false identity. The identity that was formed in childhood as a coping strategy versus the authentic adult self, where we spend time getting to know who am I really, what do I value, where do I see myself in 3 years' time, what are my contributions, etc. We live in times where people don't want to have to answer those difficult questions. They're too deep. It's about being popular and being surface level and instant gratification. And that is unfortunately what is being celebrated.
Hmm. Okay, thank you for that. I saw you, Jerry, and then we're going to start wrapping up. Jerry made a point. He says, from what I can tell, many are, there's no, the youth and young people are passionate about bringing about positive change. However, they need guidance and sometimes a reframing to focus on the local locus of control. I think the disillusionment among the youth is more widespread than only South Africa. You can see that in many of the European countries where youth unemployment is on the rise and increase and so on. So that is something. And then a link to that is this incredible inequality worldwide that is building up. I mean, we see, you can read about the US growth rates and so on, but the fact is it's a handful of people that is really benefiting from the economy in the US. They say that the majority of people who are working at the McDonald's, or a great number of them, are on food stamps. Now, can you imagine? I just want to see here, Retabile said, I listened to Radio 2000 slot as well, Dr. Nyatsumba. Heart-wrenching what goes on in entities. Given that leadership begins with the self realistically, how should people self-manage when they go into workplaces that harm them? Mindful of capitalism's reality of needing that money they pay you to survive. Yeah, well, that is a good question. Kaizer, do you want to give a stab to that?
It's about organizational culture. If you are in a company or organization where managers can be augurs to those who report to them, and there are no consequences, the employee cannot launch a grievance against that manager, HR or something. The culture is rotten in the company. So I listened to that call yesterday. People are in companies, especially in the state-owned environment, where the organizational culture is rotten, and changing culture is the most difficult thing. That's why uh, uh, we were told that culture is strategy for breakfast. It's the most difficult thing to change. So if you are in an organization where the culture is where there is allowed and celebrated, you will have people living one after another without even having jobs, because they are protecting themselves from emotional and physical stress or illness or mental illness. So you have what then happened when Kolas called yesterday. But if the culture, the leadership of the organization, uh, through the executive committee and the board, they have ensured that the culture of the organization is one that ensures that there's ethical leadership, where people are treated with respect. There would be consequences for the manager who behaves in that manner.
Mm, mm. Absolutely. Guys, we're coming to the sort of the end of our hour. I'm going to close off and wrap up by asking you to by getting very personal. So, Alicia and Kaizer, what is giving you hope? When you get up in the morning, what is driving you? What is giving you hope?
I like to start with Autumn, the dog, and the
Uh,
doggy eyes, and then probably my sons, and also my own journey. If I look at where, for those of us who are deep coaches and we do inner child work and inner critic work, and we speak to our inner child, our younger self, and we tell her that, what we've overcome and where we are today and what we've achieved. If I could achieve that, then others can achieve it too. Maybe I had some degree of luck, but some people will say that human beings are innately resilient. I only agree with that partially. I know that when we can, as a coach, I know that we can unlock the resilience. And as a coach, I would say that, we all need community. So find your community and build your muscle of courage, because change is not possible without courage. You're going to continue doing life the way you know it, in the old way, and getting the same results. However, if you start building courage brick by brick, one step at a time, trying new habits, being honest about what doesn't work, being curious about what does work, and so I believe in the ripple effect. So you will start changing and your ecosystems will benefit because of you changing. So we need brave people to do the work, and that's where the hope is.
Beautiful. Kaizer.
Before I respond, I just want to thank everybody again, Evelelem, Alicia, and everybody who's on the call, who supported us today. We really appreciate that. What is giving me hope? It is the fact that the party that has led South Africa for 30 plus years, that has got us to be to the stage that we're in now, is being considerably reduced. It's being much smaller. I expect they should be in the 30s in the local government elections. In the 2029 government elections are expected to be in the lower than 40. So that gives me hope because it says that the arrogance of old, where people placed individuals in strategic positions based on their loyalty, on party membership, on factional membership, would end, and that we would move gradually to a situation where the best in the country are employed. That gives me courage.
Oh, yeah, that's a mouthful. Thank you very much. Guys, I also want to say thank you. I want to salute these two authors. I mean, to take the time and effort and share their expertise, their knowledge, and a lot of themselves, part of themselves, um, with with a nation, so to speak, should be congratulated. I mean, this is very hard work. I know I've worked with both of you in this regard. It's hard work. It's a tough journey, and a journey that you can be proud of, by the way. And so let's support. Let's support that the two authors in the, reading their books, talking about it, but more so practice it. What's in the books. So thank you very much, Alicia, and to you, Kaizer, as well.